The insects and other living creatures seen in this programme can be dangerous and should only be handled with the guidance of a trained professional. In this episode, a bloodsucker that reaches parts other bloodsuckers don't. No!
Yeah.
A master of disguise that can grow and hide in your guts for 20 years. Keeping up with this multi-legged speedster with a toxic bite. Then underground for some lethal battlefield weaponry.
This thing is not scared of me at all.
Who knows what else could pop up? From frenetic city streets to jungle and paddy fields, there's a lot to be on your guard against in Vietnam. I'm Dr. Mike Leahy, a doctor of virology by trade and an adventure junkie by nature. My mission is to find the most advanced killers in the animal kingdom. Often tiny ones that can pose a big hazard to humans.
Oh, he's got a grip this time.
Whether they suck, bite, sting, or want to feed on your body, I'll take you into their world.
Vampire.
I love and respect these creatures, and I'll go anywhere for up-close and personal encounters in my journey to better understand what they're all about. I've come to Vietnam. The sights, sounds and smells of everyday life make it hard to picture this as the war-torn country of the 1960s and 70s. The fighting stopped, but I'm going to show you that the natural world here is still full of danger. Lying in the heart of Southeast Asia, Vietnam's home to nearly 90 million people and more than its fair share of harmful bugs and beasties. I'm beginning my journey up north in the monsoonal capital Hanoi, where I'll be getting hot under the collar and maybe a little wet. Then I'm heading south to bigger and tropical Ho Chi Minh City. Once known as Saigon, a lot more than wartime history lurks in the shadows. This is Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. Covering over 900 square kilometres, it sits on the delta of the Red River and is home to nearly 3 million people. It's amazingly colourful. The best place to get a taste of Vietnam is right here in one of the traditional markets. But I've come here to uncover a master of disguise that can grow in your guts for 20 years. Hanoi is a wonderful place to eat, which is good for me because I love my food and I'm not known for being particularly fussy. But today I'm looking for a very specific joint of beef, and it's not for my dinner. Is this beef? Beef. Come on. By the way, come on means thank you. The neck. So this is the front leg. This is there. This is there. And this. I'm getting the hang of it. And this is here, yeah? There. Well, we've got plenty of beef to choose from here. And the good news is, I think I've found the cut that I want. It contains a nasty surprise which heads straight for the guts of people who don't cook their meat properly. And I'm going to conduct my own little experiment to show you what a gut-wrenching beast it can become. As you can see, we're just outside the market. And this, in here on my piece of beef, is a beef tapeworm cyst. Now, it doesn't look much. Let me just show you. It looks like a very, very small piece of jelly. Let's see if I can cut it off. There, I've got it. It could easily look like a piece of fat. You can understand why people, and before that, other animals, eat these along with their food. They're brilliantly disguised. I really want to show you what this little creature can turn into. But to do that, it needs a little bit of help. And that help's going to have to come from me. So, here goes. 3, 2. Yeah, I knew we weren't going to do that first take. Oh dear, how am I going to do this?
It's making me feel a bit sick. Right, okay, let's get it done with. Right, this is going to be the start of something very big. Oh man. It's gone, but I really don't like the idea of this at all.
Now, unless you enjoy stomach cramps, I wouldn't recommend doing this. As a virologist interested in the things that invade our bodies, I've grown tapeworms inside me before. But how big will this one be? Keep watching. Now, I'm off to meet an extremely rare nocturnal beauty called the Austin civet. But enchanting though it is, it also has a dark past as a suspected carrier of a deadly virus that's claimed human lives. The Khám Phá Hoang National Park is one of the few places left where you can fall for its charms.
The secret to tempting a civet out in the evening is to give it some breakfast. In this case, banana, beef, bones and apple. Delicious. Make sure you don't escape. Do you want some breakfast? Isn't she absolutely beautiful? How delicate is it? With huge eyes so it can see at night, obviously. An amazingly patterned coat that's very cryptic. Camouflaged so it can't be seen. It's tiny. These little civets only weigh about 3.5 kilograms. And they feed on fruit, insects and very, very small animals. As you can see, it's amazingly delicate. What a beautiful little thing.
Let me just flip the camera over to night vision. Give me a second.
Because the civet is a nocturnal creature, we've been asked to limit our bright lights. And that's kind of appropriate, because there is a dark side to this cutie. In 2004, following an illness in a restaurant worker, 6 captive civets were found to be carrying the deadly SARS virus. SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome.
SARS was first discovered in the human population in 2002 in Guangdong province in China. The disease spread quite quickly and caused a fair degree of panic. In airports, people were looking for the disease, trying their damnedest to stop its spread. Nonetheless, it travelled nearly half a globe away. When you first catch SARS, or at least the virus that causes it, you'll pull a fever, get a headache. The aches will spread to the body. 1 in 5 people get diarrhea. Some people find it difficult to breathe straight away. And that's just a hint of what's to come, because you then develop pneumonia. The virus blocks a body mechanism which regulates fluid balance. This means that fluid can fill the alveoli of the lungs. Those are the little air sacs. This makes the lungs boggy and inefficient. And ultimately, that's what kills most of the human victims.
In January 2003, China ordered the extermination of 10,000 of the animals kept in captivity, even though scientists hadn't been able to confirm that civets could pass SARS to humans. But this isn't the only reason they're so rare.
These tiny Austin civets live in dense forest, and that's becoming a threatened habitat. So it's not just the animal that's rare, it's the very place it lives. And that's why it's very important for conservation projects like this and captive breeding programs. And it's just off to see the cameraman's legs.
In spite of their possible dangers to humans, civets are much loved here, and not just because of their good looks. Believe it or not, they have a taste for coffee beans which they share with the locals, who boil up a brew with the waste coffee that the civets pass in their dung. So, Dungachino, anyone? In the Vietnamese countryside, the humid conditions produce lush vegetation, like the lotus flower, the country's national flower. But beauty can come at a price. What's lurking in the water could make me, or the locals who stand in it to harvest the plants, very ill. So I'm not going to dive in head first.
That is so muddy. Oh, I must be sinking nearly a foot in.
I'm in this putrid pond to tell you about a tummy bug that'll attack you if you ever swallow water like this.
Cryptosporidium is caused by a tough little single-celled parasite. Both the parasite itself and the disease are often shortened to crypto. You pick it up from anything contaminated with the feces of an infected animal or human. That could be a surface, some soil, contaminated food, or most likely water, like this pond.
With defecating animals roaming the streets and poor general sanitation, Cryptosporidium is very easy for locals to catch. But it's also a worldwide problem. It could be lurking in your local pool or jacuzzi.
If you're in town and it's raining with dodgy sewers, dodgy drain pipes, you don't want to be walking in open-toed sandals, because it's just a few steps from your feet to your mouth. Crypto gives you diarrhea, but it can also cause stomach cramps, vomiting and a fever. It really isn't a nice disease to catch, and one of the reasons why it's so difficult to deal with is the little single-celled parasite can seal itself in a cyst. This is very resistant to chemicals such as chlorine, and that's why this particular pest is so difficult to get rid of.
An unwelcome part of local life here, the symptoms last 2 weeks. It's a vicious little parasite. Just when its victims think they're getting better, sickness strikes again. So I'm out of here.
It's not easy. And I'm certain I've got company. Company I don't want. I'm sinking again.
In fact, the cryptoparasite isn't the only waterborne nasty out to get me.
I have never been so grateful to get back on dry land. That was a truly yucky experience. Ah! Oh, it was! Look! Get that! Quick, quick! I'm not kidding you! You know I said I had something in the crack of my backside. That was crawling down my trousers, along the crack of my arse, making for my scrotum.
This is a blood-sucking leech.
Look at the size of it.
Ah!
Most leeches have 3 jaws and can suck several times their own weight in blood at one sitting. Enough to keep them going for a couple of months. A feed can last for up to 2 hours, and after supper there's nothing they like more than a dark spot, like my butt, to digest their meal. Other than that, they're pretty harmless. Some cultures believe they do a great job of sucking impurities out of our bodies.
Something's still moving there that I can't see. And I need somebody, Michelle, to find it for me. Now, if my wife's watching, this is just leech searching. Right.
Michelle is our team paramedic.
You can confirm there is some blood in there.
Some blood?
Yeah.
Oh, no!
Bloody hell, it got me.
I can't really see if there's anything there. You're going to have to bend over for that.
No!
Yeah.
Isn't there?
There's a lot of blood there.
There's a lot of blood.
I can't see a leech.
Ah, good.
No leeches.
Although it's gone now, that leech was settling in for a feast.
I'm never going in another pond as long as I live. And when I see these beautiful, beautiful lotus ponds, I now know what they're really like.
But staying out of water provides no guarantees of escaping other killer bugs or diseases. Especially if you add one of these ducks, or worse still, their blood to your menu.
This is a scene typical of Vietnam. Here they like their food fresh and free range. But looking at these ducks here, it's hard to believe that they can also give you a killer disease. They carry the H5N1 strain of bird flu. If one of these ducks were to catch it, they're almost certain to die. If you were to catch it, you're going to get more than a bad chest, a fever and the shivers.
In fact, you'd stand more than a 50% chance of dying. Bird flu has the potential to kill up to 360 million people worldwide.
But the statistics only tell a tiny part of the story, because it's not what bird flu's already done, it's the potential for what it really can do. Influenza mutates very quickly, much more quickly than most other viruses. At present, you can only catch bird flu by direct contact with infected birds, with very few exceptions. Now, normally influenza spreads by the aerosol route, so when you sneeze in particles. As yet, bird flu doesn't.
But experts think it's only a matter of time before it can travel from human to human. Vietnam has been on high alert against bird flu since it erupted here in 2004. Rigorous countermeasures have helped bring it under control, and many people are eating duck and poultry again. But one delicacy made from duck blood is still a big no-no.
In 2005, two brothers here in Vietnam contracted bird flu by eating blood soup. In the resulting paranoia, the government banned it. But I've had a tip-off that some still might be available in this market.
I'm eager to see what this forbidden dish tastes like, because it has special significance for the people here. According to ancient custom, they eat it to mark the death of a relative.
Tiet. Over here, come on.
Understandably, it's not something that's widely advertised, so you really have to hunt for it.
No. In a bag, over there. Oh, brilliant. Perfect 70? Yeah, thank you. Come on. I think we've got what we want, but she doesn't want to be filmed, so we better get out of here. Yeah, we better get out of here quick. Right. The woman who sold me this was very cagey. And it's not a surprise because I didn't just get a duck, I got exactly what I wanted. Under here, if I'm very careful, well hidden, some blood soup.
So what's it taste like? Since there are no reports of bird flu in this area at the moment, I'm going to try a little bit, but only the tiniest sip. I won't swallow it, and I'll also be monitored by our medic.
Let's go. I can taste the coriander, but I can taste a lot of other stuff as well. And excuse me. What can I say? It's an acquired taste.
So while I'm about to get a thorough mouthwash, it's best for you to steer clear of this broth. I certainly wouldn't recommend it. This is much more fun. I'm soaking up the atmosphere of the oldest surviving merchant's quarter in Vietnam. You can still see the heritage. Hang on the street signs means merchandise, not street. So each road is named after what it sells. And so here I am in Metal Street on the hunt for a rat trap. Rats, or more specifically the fleas in their fur, carry a deadly disease that you may think was all in the past. It killed millions of people centuries ago. The plague.
Now these are sizable traps. And these two, okay, these are stuck together. Wonderful. This is just what I need. Thank you very much. Some Vietnamese style pest control, and if the rats are as big as this trap, we're in for a treat.
Trapping a rat here in Hanoi should be easy because a lot of food waste ends up on the streets. Perfect for these great opportunists.
I can smell that from around the corner. There's definitely somebody's tea in there, but probably from a few days ago. So it's time to bring out my secret weapon. Hope I haven't squashed it. The Vietnamese donut. Now, I love these over breakfast, and I can't believe anything would be able to resist it.
Time to make myself scarce.
Yes, we have a rat. Oh, yes. Right. Look at this. Urban myths say that if you're in a city, you're never more than a metre from a rat. And I think in Hanoi, this is definitely the case. Rats are amazing creatures. They don't just live alongside man, they thrive alongside man. And generally they don't cause too many problems, unless we leave lots of mess around like this, in which case they can breed to really high numbers.
And when that happens, there's a greater risk that rat fleas will jump over to us for a taste of our blood instead. In the process, they can pass on some really nasty diseases. Now it's time for another hunt for the killer flea.
Right, okay. We now have the rat in the bag. Now, can you see there its fur? I don't want to make it jump. I really don't want to hurt it. But if I can backcomb its fur, with luck, I'll get the beast we're really looking for. And I can see some already. I've got one. There, a nice big flea.
And great, it's already making for my arm. But as long as I don't let it bite me, I should be okay.
Fleas can spread several human diseases. These include typhus, tapeworms, and most notorious of all, the sinister plague. Now you might think that the plague is confined to the pages of history books, but you'd be very wrong.
The plague is still with us. Up to 3,000 cases worldwide are recorded every year. The culprit is a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, which can develop into 3 forms. The first is bubonic plague. Buboes are hot-to-touch swellings in the lymph nodes around your body. They erupt along with fevers and chills. In the second and third forms, the bacteria can go on to poison your blood and infect your lungs. Without treatment, you're likely to die. The best way of avoiding the plague? Don't get bitten by a rat flea in the first place.
Well, I don't think we need this guy anymore. There he goes, back home.
Of course, I sent the flea packing too, and cleaned up. But I'm eager to avoid picking up another hitchhiker, this time on my head. A thorough wash with medicated shampoo is probably the best way of keeping it away. But I'm going to get a haircut to spoil the habitat it loves too.
Xin chào.
Ciao.
Nhang?
Okay.
Nhang?
Yeah.
Oh dear. I think this lady thinks I'm mad. Because although I don't have much hair, I like keeping it short. The sides in any case. And there are 2 good reasons for this. The first is that I really don't like having much hair because my head gets really hot. The second is I've got a rather characteristic itch.
It could be a Pediculus humanus capiti, better known as a head louse.
Head lice are insects, but unlike other insects, they don't have wings and they don't have jumping legs. They spread from close personal contact, so you've got to get your head very close to someone else's. Because what head lice do have are curved claws, which they use for holding on to hairs. And believe it or not, even my hair's long enough to provide a pretty good home for a head lice, because they just need enough hair to grip onto, so then they can feed on my blood. In order for a head louse to survive, it needs human blood. In fact, a head louse can only survive a day, maximum 2, off a human head. That means that they can be transmitted on hats or headscarves or towels, but in no way are they connected to dirty environments, which sort of goes against what a lot of people think.
They lay eggs in our hair too, about 7 a day. The eggs hatch within a couple of weeks and grow into mature lice ready to reproduce within another 12 days. So, if you don't wash your hair with some medicated shampoo, things can get pretty itchy on the top of your head.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Come on.
Thank you, Helema.
That was awesome.
Now we're heading to the busy outskirts of Hanoi, where things are about to get a whole lot scarier. I'm looking for a creature that kills nearly everyone it bites if they're not treated.
Xin chào. You must be Teng. Pleased to meet you. We're in a piece of parkland very close to Hanoi. You can hear the traffic in the background. But we're on a hunt for a Malayan crate. So this is my virgin Malayan crate trip. There's no way I'm going to use my hand, but I should be safe with my trekking boots. Because Although the Malayan krait is incredibly deadly, it's only got a very small mouth. Whoa! Okay, there's a snake, Do you want to... Oh yes, that's a beauty. You can tell it's a krait. It's got very, very distinctive black and white bands running along its body. I've got to say, it's a little bit smaller than I expected, but you can see it's got quite a small head. Okay, if I hold, there, look, I've got the harmless end. It's estimated that up to 30,000 people a year get bitten by snakes in Vietnam. And if you're unlucky enough to get bitten by this krait snake, oh, excuse me, sorry. It's freaky holding a snake when you're not actually watching it.
Krait venom is 10 times more potent than a cobra's. If you're unlucky enough to be bitten, you've got an almost 90% chance of dying. Even treatment doesn't guarantee you'll survive.
Now, at its head, at the front of its top jaw, it's got 2 large teeth, its fangs, and that's how it injects its venom. They act like little hypodermic needles, and if it bites a human, it's likely to bite you just below the skin or into your muscle. Now, the venom is quite complex, but it includes neurotoxins, and those, they cripple your muscles. They stop your muscles from working, and you might think, hey, not so bad, but it stops your involuntary muscles working. That means you can't swallow, and eventually you're unable to breathe and you'll die.
Kraits, which spend some of their time in water, aren't naturally aggressive. But at night, they find their way into local homes to find food. All it takes is an unwary sleeper to roll onto them accidentally, and the krait will strike in self-defense. As their bites are painless, many of its victims will either sleep on or wake, unaware of the cause of their possibly fatal breathing difficulties.
Talk about having a tail between my legs. Right, so how do you avoid being bitten by a snake? Well, the first thing's quite obvious really, and that's know your snakes. Know what kind of snakes are where you're going, know what time they come out and where they'll be. Now with this particular creature, knowing how it comes into conflict with us, never sleep on the floor.
It's time to move on. I'm leaving Hanoi and travelling south towards Ho Chi Minh City and its surrounding countryside.
I'm 65 kilometres northwest of Ho Chi Minh City in Cu Chi district. It's an area famous for its underground tunnels. Once, right underneath our feet was a network of 250 kilometres of tunnels. They were built in the late 40s onwards and were used first in the War of Independence against the French and in a later conflict against America. It's spine-tingling to think of the ferocity of the fighting round here and the deprivations of day-to-day life. Oh, it's a bit dark actually. Oh. Walking through these tunnels is difficult enough. I can't imagine what it must have been like to live and fight in here. Crikey. It's pretty easy to get lost though. Crikey, it's so hot in here. I can barely breathe. You cannot believe what a relief it is to be able to stand up. I feel like I've just done a thorough workout in the gym. Oh, let's see what we can find in here.
Aside from the fascinating history, there is a reason I'm busting my back in these caves. Even though the war's long over, there's still a lethal killer lurking down here. It's a dark little critter, and it likes to hide in the shadows. So I'm going to need some ultraviolet light to find him.
Ah, yes. This is what we're looking for. Quickly. Let's see if I can get my tweezers. Right, look at the colour of this baby. That's because I've got this little torch. It's actually black. It's very, very well camouflaged down here. This is a black scorpion, or an Asian forest scorpion, and you can see it's a pretty impressive creature. Naturally, they're most active at night, and during the day they tend to hide in dark crevices, which makes these tunnels just about perfect, which must have been very unfortunate for the people who lived down here. because you don't want to be stung by one of these. Look at that for aggression. This thing is not scared of me at all. Although they don't chase their prey, they hide and they lay in wait for prey to ambush it. And if you were to accidentally put your hand down or foot down, the consequences could be catastrophic. A scorpion's sting is really sharp and it's hollow like a hypodermic needle that allows it to puncture the skin and inject its venom. If the venom's very toxic, the pain will radiate out to places like your armpits or even your groin. It'll then give you a tight throat and chest, and you may well start to panic. The unlucky victim might die because of breathing difficulties or heart failure. Right, I think it's time to put you back in your living quarters. There you go. And it's time for me to go and find some fresh air. I can find some fresh air. Hey, fresh air at last. But like everything in life, you have to fight for it. These tunnels weren't made for a fat Englishman. Woo. That was a tight fit. I'd love to say that the population of Ho Chi Minh City and the surrounding wildlife live in perfect harmony. But if I can find the beast I'm looking for now, you'll be able to see that this certainly isn't the case.
It's one of the nastiest bugs I've hunted so far, with an agonising and toxic bite that can send your body into major trauma and kill you.
Now that's a rustle I recognise. And I've got to be very careful because they're really, really quick. And either he's going to go for me or make a run for it. It's quite tricky to get at him. Quite tricky.
Can't see it.
It's almost impossible. I can barely see it, to be honest. Let's go. This way. Got it. Yes. Got it? I've got him. Just. There's life in the old dog yet. I thought it was going to outrun me for a minute. But then again, it has got nearly 50 legs. Look at this. A Vietnamese centipede. Now, they're most active at night, and during the day they tend to find themselves a cool, shady place to rest, which is exactly where we found this one. This guy is potentially quite dangerous and certainly very painful. If they want to attack you, they grab hold of you with their front pair of legs and then bend downwards to bite you with a pair of venomous fangs. Once you're bitten, the area around the bite will swell up. It'll itch like crazy and it can make you sick. The pain from these can be excruciating, and it's caused by histamines in the venom, which activate pain receptors in your skin and in your flesh around the bite. Now my hint is, if you see one of these guys, just run in the opposite direction. I'm really impressed with all the defences that this centipede's got, but it's got one more trick that I can show you, which helps it to survive either in the forest or in the waterways of Ho Chi Minh City. Come with me. Centipedes are all-terrain, go-anywhere type of creatures. Check this out. Look at him swim. That is pretty amazing.
You don't have to be in the countryside to have a very painful encounter with the local insects. Here at the university, there's something really bugging the students, but it's nothing to do with their grades.
A small black and red beetle. It burns your arms. This little patch of greenery, amongst all this concrete, is an absolute paradise for the little beetle I'm looking for. But if you were a student chilling out on this piece of grass and you inadvertently came across one, it could make your life absolute hell. Yep. Here we go. And at last. That's gorgeous. I've got a very, very speedy, absolutely gorgeous rove beetle. Now look at this guy. There. This little creature's moving so fast I'm going to have to try and keep it still somehow, so there you go, into captivity. Isn't that beautiful? They may grow to under a centimetre in length, but their hemolymph, that's the insect equivalent of blood, is 12 times more poisonous than cobra venom.
The university's professor of entomology says that this little fella has been stirring up quite a bit of trouble here.
And so at the times, many news in the newspapers talk about this, and some people just come and ask me how we can repair them. So because the problem is from the liquid from inside the insect body. Some people happily burn the skin.
Really?
Yes, it's inconvenient.
Right.
Yeah.
Painful?
Yes, painful.
It doesn't sound like a very nice beetle, does it?
It does. We don't like it.
So what has the grass-roaming rove beetle got against the students, and how does it inflict so much pain?
They don't naturally want to hurt human beings, but the problem is they're attracted to light. So once they see a light on in somewhere like a student dormitory, they'll get in, and that's where the problems begin. As a human, it's a natural reaction to want to squash this little beetle if it gets on your skin. But if you were to squash this rove beetle, you'll get the toxin on your skin, which can be quite painful. So the best bet is do what the locals do. Just blow it away. That way, you don't get hurt, and this cool little beetle gets to live another day. Just be nice to the students.
The problem with many of the nasty critters and bugs in this world is that they're so good at preying on the likes of you and me that we often don't see them until it's too late, even if they're right in front of our eyes. And I mean right in front of our eyes. There's a little creature called Demodex follicularum, and it's a mite, the eyelash mite. It's distantly related to scorpions and spiders, and it loves to live in the follicles of all sorts of hairs, but particularly your eyelashes. Believe it or not, in the follicle of each of your eyelashes, you might be harbouring up to 25 of these tiny creatures, and they're not uncommon. Up to 95% of the population are infested with these follicle mites. You pick up Demodex mites from direct contact with other people, and probably from dust. Of the two species that infest human beings, even the larger one is less than 0.5 millimetre in length, so they're tiny. The mites have tiny claws and needle-like mouthparts that are specialised to feeding on human skin cells. The mouthparts puncture the cells and suck up all the fluid inside. And the mite's digestive system is so efficient they don't even need an anus, because they don't need to poo. Now that's some trick. If an infestation becomes heavy, it can lead to inflammation and dryness around the eyes. It can even lead to a condition something like dandruff of the eyelashes, and in extreme cases, your eyelashes can actually fall out.
Here we go. Right. In Vietnam, you don't have to just watch out for the little killer creatures, because the plants can turn on the unwary too. This is the sack tree. It's widespread across Vietnam and has a number of uses. The bark's very fibrous, so it can be used to make clothing, make blankets, and as the name suggests, you can also make sacks out of it. But another use betrays a dark side of this tree, because the resin, which is just below the surface, is used to tip poison arrows. This tree enjoys almost mythical status. It's said that no animal can survive for a 15-mile radius around it. Another local story says that if you sleep against this tree, you won't wake up, you'll die in your sleep. And there's some fact in this, because if you were to have an open cut or a skin abrasion, and if, when leaning against this tree, you were to rub against some of its resin, it may well kill you. Now, as you can see, just under the bark there is the latex, or the sap of the tree. It's very white and milky, and you can see quite a lot comes out quite quickly. That contains a potent toxin.
And that could stop your heart. So I think I'd better clean up in case any other people pass by.
Note to self, must take care not to cut hand while washing blade with poisonous liquid on it.
In the natural world, what looks beautiful and harmless can be completely the opposite. Many local farmers and American soldiers who've crossed these paddy fields have certainly learnt that bitter lesson. That's because lurking in the stagnant water here is a disease called melioidosis.
Melioidosis is sometimes known as the Vietnamese time bomb. In 1973, around 300 US soldiers had been diagnosed with the disease, which is fair enough, they were in an exotic place. But more worrying, this bacterium can hide in your body. Even now, around 30 years after these guys have come home from Vietnam, they're still beginning to go down with the symptoms, some even dying of a disease they contracted several decades ago.
Melioidosis is caused by the bacterium Burkholderia pseudomallei. It can infect anyone wading through stagnant water with cuts or abrasions. Once inside us, it causes the disease also known as the Great Mimicker.
And that's because it can look like so many different diseases. It can cause an infection of the blood, septicemia, which is potentially fatal. Or it can cause an illness which under the X-ray looks almost identical to tuberculosis.
This makes it difficult to diagnose and treat the illness properly.
Once infected, the sufferer can pass the disease on in many ways. Via the excrement or urine, so sewage is a problem, through pus on wounds, but also through their sputum, so don't go kissing a stranger.
Now, speaking of kissing strangers,
in this park, everybody seems to be getting loved up. There are couples everywhere and they're all over each other. And I'm here on my own. And the only love bite I've got is from the rove beetle. You can see there's a lot of red and there are blisters in between. It's just like a burn. You know, I've experienced burns before working on my motorbike and it feels exactly the same. It just took a little bit longer to come up. I hope it won't take much longer to go away because it's genuinely painful, especially around the blisters. As you can see, for a little guy, that rove beetle certainly proved who's boss.
remember me swallowing this tapeworm cyst when I first arrived in Vietnam? I certainly haven't forgotten. Now I'm at the end of my stay, it's time to find out what it's grown into.
So, stage one, a worming tablet. That pill will kill the tapeworm, but I'm using milk of magnesia to flush it out. To be honest, it doesn't taste too bad, but I know that the effects can be explosive, and the clock's ticking. The beauty of tapeworm trapping is that you don't need any expensive kit. So here we've got a household sieve. So if I place that sieve accurately in the toilet, there's no way the tapeworm's going to get through it. So the next stage is rather obvious.
Modesty prevents me from showing you my subsequent efforts. But if you're unlucky enough to swallow a tapeworm cyst like I did, get ready for one hell of a house guest. Growing over months at a rate of 15 to 30 millimetres a day inside your guts, they can reach up to 5 metres long. So no wonder they can give you stomach cramps. My worm turned out to be a bit of a mini-meal. Let's go see a whopper.
Grab a load of this guy. This is what I was hoping to grow. Imagine that inside you. If my hands are shaking a bit, it's more out of excitement than nerves. Because it really is quite exciting to get so close to such a big beastie, but also it's quite delicate. And
this one's obviously been dead a while, and it's so long it's had to be stored in a jar. But how does the cyst I swallowed at the market turn into something like this?
the front end of a tapeworm is called a scolex, and that's the bit you initially swallow in a tiny cyst. The scolex unfolds after it enters your small intestine and anchors itself to the side. And from then it grows, and it grows at an amazing rate. In 3 months it can grow to 5 meters long. And during that period you may not even know you've got this pretty big creature taking up residence inside you.
But that's only until these wily squatters start giving you an itchy bottom, and here's how they do it.
Each one of these little segments, which are called proglottids, is a free-living animal in its own right. And this is where this creature starts to get just a little bit antisocial, because these segments break off from the end of the tapeworm when they're at their largest. They'll then find their way out of your body, and obviously there's only really one way out, which is through your anus.
And they don't stop there. Many of these proglottids carry eggs, up to 100,000 of them each, ready to start the cycle all over again once they're dumped onto the ground from a bowel movement, from grass to cows to us.
One thing is, when you're infected with a beef tapeworm, you've almost got a friend for life, because these guys can live from 5 to 20 years while they're inside your body.
The tapeworm's not the only friend I've made while hunting down the beasties here. Whether you're in the vibrant city or lush countryside.
Oh, it was! Look! Get that! Quick!
From blood-hungry bugs to the toxic centipede and brutally armed scorpion. You'll always have to be on your lookout here in Vietnam.